It's an Ask Anything mailbag. Nothing's off limits. You know we love doing that on Dolphins Today. If this is your first time tuning in, well, thank you. We appreciate you watching Dolphins Today. I'm your host, Jake Riepma, and around here we bleed aqua and orange for our 6-2 Dolphins. We're taking on the 6-2 Chiefs on Sunday in a battle for first place in the AFC. It's going to be electric. So without further ado, let's get it going with the first question coming in from Howard Huey using that hashtag Dolphins. Is X playing this weekend? Of course, X being Xaven Howard. He's missed the last 2 games, and he is that ball-hawking corner that when he's ready to go, he and Jaylen Ramsey together will be a dynamic duo and, more importantly, lock down. In fact, they should have those big locks around their neck because they are locked down. Xaven Howard has led the NFL in interceptions in 2 years of his career, and I don't even have to get into Jaylen Ramsey's his resume, but it speaks for itself. 6-time Pro Bowler. He's one of a kind. But Xavier Howard's dealing with that groin injury that caused him to miss the game against the Patriots as well as the previous game against the Eagles. And Mike McDaniel talked about Xavier Howard, saying that he is close to being ready to play, but not ready to officially declare him as good to go on Sunday. But Xavier Howard, if you know, he always says he's good to go. He said he's good to go. He also said he was good to go before the Eagles game. We know how that turned out. So not knocking X. I love X. And in fact, I think I want this. You want this. We all want our players to want to play, the superstars. I mean, there's guys in the NFL. It's crazy when maybe they're not 100% or close to it, whatever it may be. You got, a guy like Xavier Howard, if he can go, he will. But sometimes that athletic training staff has to protect him from himself. And I think that was the case the last 2 weeks. So he probably feels good. And if I were to bet, I would say yes, that he is going to play on Sunday, but that's just Jake talking. We'll have more clarity on that as the week progresses. But we know one thing. When X and Jaylen Ramsey are paired together, they make up 2 of the better corners in the NFL, and Jaylen Ramsey might just be the best cornerback in the National Football League. All right, another one coming in from Sydney Jacobs. How are you, Sydney? Thanks for tuning in. Using the hashtag Dolphins, who is a player the Dolphins can sign in free agency to help the O-line? That's a really good question. And when you think about it, I think a lot of conversations were had about whether or not the Dolphins should make a trade at the deadline for an offensive lineman. And obviously, we've said it time and time again, it's difficult to make a deal in season, especially at the position of offensive line. There's just not a lot out there. So free agency typically is the better direction to go. And I'm not saying there's any huge free agents that are going to be available on the offensive line, but maybe some guys to help the depth. And one of those is La'el Collins, who's played at LSU. And in 2022, he played 15 games and was relatively productive for the Bengals. He played 951 snaps, had the 5 sacks allowed, but was penalized 8 times. But given how many snaps he took, it's not a huge percentage there. And again, that Pro Football Focus grade that we talk about is a 73.5 as far as his pass blocking abilities. So that's not the end-all, be-all. But again, somebody that you could add to the depth there to help with the offensive line depth because they've been riddled with injuries. A lot of guys on that list, I mean, I don't have to tell you twice, but Teron Armstead currently on IR. He might play. He's eligible to come off for the game on Sunday against the Chiefs. Connor Williams day-to-day. Isaiah Wynn on IR. Rob Hunt also day-to-day. So bringing in another offensive lineman through free agency might be the direction that this Dolphins front office decides to go under the leadership, of course, of Chris Grier. So let me know in the comments. Do it right now. Who do you think the Dolphins should sign? Let me know in the comments below. And full reign, complete creativity, let me know. All right, every noodle's asking a question. Every noodle. That noodle, this noodle, every noodle. Here we go. Dolphins, using the hashtag Dolphins. Who do you think will really step it up this game? I love this question because you look at a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, and when you think who could have a breakout game, start to think, where might the Chiefs have a weakness? And this defense for the Chiefs has been really good. In fact, it's the best defense the Chiefs have had in years, and they get a lot done by getting pressure on the quarterback. So it's going to be important for that offensive line to protect Tua Tagovailoa. But on the flip side, the run defense for the Chiefs isn't as good as the pass rush. I think there's some vulnerabilities there. And because of that, I'm looking for Raheem Mostert to get back into the production he was showing earlier in the season. That's not to take anything away from what he's done the last two games, but they were the two lowest yardage outputs of the season for Mostert. He did have the touchdown against the Patriots, but was held scoreless against the Eagles. And so I think Raheem Mostert is eyeing that bounce-back game. The Chiefs' rushing defense allows over 115 yards per game, which is 19th in the NFL. So it's not like they're horrible stopping the run. They're just not as good at stopping the run as they are maybe in pass defense. So the Chiefs' scoring defense, one of the best, but there's some vulnerabilities in their rushing defense. So I look for Raheem Mostert to have a breakout game and really get back into pumping up the stat sheet and being a valuable asset for this Miami Dolphins offense. So give me Raheem Mostert to break out. This one from Magalo81. Will Claypool get a bigger role? That's a good question because we've seen Claypool in uniform. He's been active twice. Didn't do a lot the first time he was active against the Eagles. And hard to really say how much production he had against the Patriots other than the one catch. And that catch was for a first down. He got the crowd going a little bit, so you saw a little bit of a spark there. And we know what he's capable of doing. This guy that scored 9 touchdowns his rookie year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But his production has continued to decline. We want to see it the other way. So maybe, just maybe, this is the week that he's kind of that unsung hero, that guy that really falls through the cracks and maybe isn't as high up on the game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs, and a guy that could kind of sliver through and has some production. So I'll say yes. I'll say Claypool will have a bigger role for the Miami Dolphins against the Kansas City Chiefs because you know they're going to key on Reid. You know they're going to be all over Jaylen Waddle, especially because both those guys are coming off 100-yard receiving performances against the Patriots. So now is a great time for Chase Claypool to make that impact and do what he was brought in to do for the Miami Dolphins. Got to give a huge shout out to Prize Picks. Prize Picks, proud supporting sponsor of today's show. We couldn't do it without them. And look, Prize Picks is awesome. It's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You simply pick more or less on a player's projected stat line for any given game. You can do it with NBA. The hoop season is here. That's exciting. We still got baseball going on. And, of course, with the NFL, Prize Picks, it's a little, actually, you know what, I'm going to say a lot. It's a lot of fun and kind of addicting, so it is so fun. Make sure you always, of course, are responsible. But with Prize Picks, you're picking more or less on a player's projected stat line. And I've got my picks ready to go for Sunday for the Dolphins-Chiefs game in Frankfurt, Germany. I'm picking more passing yards for Tua Tagovailoa, 286.5, and less passing yards for Patrick Mahomes at 295.5. And that's how it works. You only need 2 or more. You can combine up to 6 stat lines on the more or less picks, and it is a ton of fun, and which is also really cool. A couple of new points to tell you about now that hoop season is here. You can do a little combo action. You can pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, which is a league that was created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. So, for example, let's get wild and crazy here. Let's say I want to do a LeBron James and Tyreek Hill combo at 10.5 of made 3-pointers and receptions. You know I'm picking more there. And we'll see if King James and the Cheetah can get it done. But that's what we've got going at Prize Picks. Find out for yourself. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. And, you know, we always make it easy on you because we love you. We care about you. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. That link is in the description as well as the chat. Prizepicks.com prizepicks.com/CLNS. We've got a $100 deposit match waiting for you at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Let's get back to your questions here from Nosedale Silva. What up with our center? I'm assuming you mean Connor Williams. Now, Connor Williams was at practice today for the Dolphins, which is good news, albeit a limited role. But according to Dolphins Insider, who is in Germany, boots on the ground, Joe Shad, shout out to him, Connor Williams and Teron Armstead were practicing today in Frankfurt, Germany. And so there you go. You got Connor Williams, who is practicing and trending towards being able to play on Sunday. No official word yet, but you got to believe him practicing this week is a good sign. He's in Germany, he boots on the ground, and all indications are that he is trending towards having at least a game time decision on whether or not he'll play on Sunday. So there you go. From Chad Jones. Chad Jones. Who? Chad Jones. Our guy, my guy, your guy, Dolphins Today guy, the one and only Chad Jones. Shout out to him. Do you think that it was good for Miami to hold off on getting any more help at the trade deadline, since they knew they were getting a lot of people back? Well, Chad, you, my friend, are the man, and obviously a smart guy, because that's exactly what I was going to say is the second part of that question. I think the thought process here for the Dolphins was, look, we got a lot of guys on IR. We got a lot of guys banged up. We've got a bye week coming up, and all of these injuries are not season ending. Let me say that again. They're not season ending. So when you look at the current state of the Dolphins, yes, there's some elements that, and some position groups for that matter, that are a little bit banged up, some holes that need to be filled. But I think when you look internally about who's coming back, what the timelines are for those injuries, those holes can be filled internally without mortgaging future assets like draft capital or sending players elsewhere. Also, keep in mind what we talked about yesterday with the Dolphins being in a little bit of cap, I don't want to say cap hell, but definitely a cap deficit, which makes it difficult to bring in guys based on certain contract situations. And two guys that reworked their contract at the beginning of this year were Alec Ingold, the fullback, as well as Zach Zeeler. And they got a little bit more money up front to shore up down the road to help with that cap deficit. So a lot of moving pieces there. And I think what you mentioned as far as players coming off IR is the main reason there weren't a lot of deals done, or weren't any deals done for that matter by the Dolphins, combined with the cap situation for the Dolphins. And I believe the number was 26 mil of a cap deficit right now. But again, that's for the front office to work out. But bringing in a big name with a big contract, I don't think was really in the cards for the Dolphins. So all those factors contribute to it. So there you go. The Dolphins are getting healthier. They've got a huge game against the Chiefs. And you got to be on board for the ride, because it's going to be a hell of a ride. Already 6-2. We've had a ton of fun, but there's room for more. So join Dolphins Today, the largest Dolphins YouTube community on the internet, and 48 and a half of your closest friends, 48 half in 1,000 of your closest friends. Let me try that again. 48,500 of your closest friends. My goodness, Jake, there you go. You start talking about cap deficit and salaries, and all of a sudden you can't articulate numbers. My goodness. 48,500 subscribers. There you go. Join us, because we have a lot of fun on Dolphins Today. Couple more questions to get into on the mailbag. Jordan Swartz. What up, Jordan, my guy? After we win this week, do you think we can get 12 wins this season? I really do. Look, I looked at the schedule. You got the Jets on the schedule still. You got a lot of winnable games for the Dolphins. And yes, the division isn't what it's been. You got that rematch against the Bills all the way back in week 18. You got the Cowboys. Of course, that's a tough game. But I think this Dolphins team can get to 12 wins. I even said 13. So let's get wild. Let's get crazy. The production is there. The talent is there. This Dolphins offense, Dolphins defense, I'm high on both of them, because I think we've seen a lot of growth and progression, albeit the two toughest games they've lost, but a lot can change. And as Jordan mentions, after we get that dub on Sunday against the Chiefs, it's all gravy, baby. We just keep that train going. So, yes, I do think the Dolphins can get to 12 wins. Fins Fan is next. What's up, Fins Fan 2003? Shout out to you. We appreciate you watching the show and participating with a super chat. Does Tyreek Hill break the receiving record? Well, my goodness, that was what our last segment was all about. And I'll tell you this, Jake Riepma believe he's going to get it done. And I'm not really going out on a limb because through 8 games, he's already on pace to eclipse the 2,000-yard mark, and that was his goal. Look at that. After 8 games, he's the first NFL receiver this year to 1,000 yards. The 8 touchdowns are impressive, 61 receptions. He's the cheetah, fastest player in the NFL, and I think he can get there. Shout out to Calvin Johnson, who's got the current record right now from 2012 at 1,964 yards. And I think Tyreek Hill, when it's all said and done, is going to pass each and every one of the guys on the screen. Julio Jones, who had 1,871 yards in 2015. Cooper Kupp nearly passed Calvin Johnson. Remember, he had an extra game to do it, too. Also, that's not taking anything away from the current records that are made in the NFL, but one more game compared to the 16-game schedule that was being played in 2012 when Megatron got the record. So very impressive there. But yes, I do think Tyreek Hill is getting that record. But let me ask you the same question. Predict it in the comments. Does Tyreek break the single-season receiving record? Type Y for yes or N for no. Couple more to get to here. Kyle Suro says, who do you like to replace Wynn at guard? Cotton or Jones? It's a good question. I think Lester Cotton showed significant improvement and growth from when he was thrown into the fire against the Eagles. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. That's a tough spot to be in compared to how he played against the Patriots. I thought he was much better against the Patriots. Granted, it's an easier task than the vaunted Eagles defensive line, who's really good, but I would say that, and that's not to take anything away from Robert Jones, but I think Lester Cotton is the better option there. And some of that is it is a really good question because I don't think there's a clear, defined answer because I don't think you'd be wrong to say Rob Jones either. So I think that's a question for Mike McDaniel and the entire offensive staff and the personnel there in terms of evaluating their performance in practice, evaluating who gives you the best opportunity to win. And if it were me, and I'm not at every practice, I can see the stuff that the media has access to, but that's not the full story. So you trust the coaching staff to make the right move there, but I think it's Lester Cotton. Last one, and the best for last, Sherry May, the one and only, the realest of the real. Shout out to you. On the Germany trip, do the families get to go? That's a really good question. So Jaylen Phillips actually talked about this and tweeted it out that and don't quote me on this because I don't have the tweet in front of me, but a family member was in the military in Germany, and I believe it was his aunt, but 35 of her closest friends are going to be at the game. So Jaylen Phillips, because he spent some time in Germany leading up to or prior to this trip, he said he kind of feels like the travel tour guide for all the guys, which was kind of funny to say. But I don't know. I'm not exactly sure on whether or not the families get to go on the trip. And it was interesting the way Jevon Holland talked about the trip to Germany, that it feels like a free vacation, which is awesome. And we know he'll come ready to play. He always does, which was also interesting. And we talked about it yesterday, the fact that the Dolphins came to Germany right away and the Chiefs aren't going until Thursday. So just kind of intriguing the way that the two teams approach this international trip so differently. So there you have it. I am not 100% certain on it, but I do know the Dolphins are loving their time in Germany, and we can't wait for the game on Sunday against the 6-2 Kansas City Chiefs. And as we always do, we got to give a shout out to our Aqua Club members because the list is growing. And for those that don't know what the Aqua Club is, it is the most prestigious level of membership within Dolphins Today. It's reserved for those that make a $100 super chat contribution to the show. And as a reminder, none of that money goes into my pocket or producer Jack's pocket for that matter. It goes right back into the Dolphins Today pool so that we can bring you daily Dolphins content, daily Dolphins updates, injury news, and of course, live shows, live watch parties. And you know what? Here at Chat Sports, I'll say it, we're a little bit competitive. How's the Dolphins channel doing? How are the Aqua Club members? That is talked about throughout the office and within the walls of Chat Sports, so make no mistake about it. We appreciate your support of Dolphins Today via the Aqua Club. So shout out Chad Jones, shout out Lord Buddy Bear, David Breecount, Mystical, Robert Fritz. And Robert, if you're watching, I've got that Dan Marino jersey. I got to send it to you. And I got to give a huge shout out to Gerald Stokes. He joined last Sunday, as did Jason Nugel, Nicholas Dixon. And on Tuesday's trade deadline, Brian Aycock, badass B.A. Brian, joined the Aqua Club. So we appreciate you guys for your support of the show and helping keeping the lights on here at Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. So love you guys very much. And as always, subscribe to Dolphins Today for the latest and greatest on all things Miami Dolphins. Let's go Dolphins. Let's beat the Chiefs on Sunday in Frankfurt, Germany.